After I was robbed, I felt like my whole world had shattered. The thieves didn't just take my money and valuables, they took my sense of safety. Every night I lay in bed, staring at the ceiling, jumping at every creak in the floorboards. I couldn't sleep. I couldn't even close my eyes without hearing those footsteps in my head. So I did what any father would do. I called my only son, Michael. I said, "Son, I'm not feeling safe at home. Could I stay with you for a few days until I get the locks changed?" There was a pause on the line, and then his voice came back, cold and sharp. "Dad, I don't need another mouth to feed in my house. I've got my own problems." The words stung more than the robbery itself. I hung up the phone in silence, feeling smaller than I ever had in my 72 years. But something didn't sit right with me. Michael was always polite, even distant, but never cruel. What could have changed him so much? 2 days later, I decided to drive over to his place uninvited. I told myself it was just to talk face to face to clear the air. But deep down, I was worried about him, about us, about everything. When I pulled up to his driveway, I noticed something strange. A shiny new car parked outside. Michael had told me he was struggling with money, barely paying rent. How could he afford that car? I knocked on the door, and after a long minute, it opened. Michael stood there, clearly surprised to see me. He hesitated, blocking the entrance with his body. "Dad, what are you doing here?" "I just wanted to see you," I said gently. "Can I come in?" His eyes darted behind him, like he was hiding something. "Now's not a good time," he muttered, but I stepped forward anyway, and what I saw inside left me frozen in place. Inside Michael's living room, I froze. Sitting on the couch was a young woman I had never seen before, holding a baby. The baby couldn't have been more than 6 months old. "Dad, this isn't what it looks like," Michael blurted out, stepping in front of me, as if to block my view. I stared at the woman. She looked nervous, but not frightened, more like she didn't expect to meet me today. "Hello, Mr. Davis," she said softly. "I'm Emily." "Emily?" I turned to my son. "Michael, what's going on? Who is she? And whose baby is that?" Michael rubbed his face, avoiding eye contact. She's my girlfriend, and that's my son." I nearly dropped my cane. "Your son? You never told me you had a child. Why are you hiding this from me?" Michael's voice cracked with frustration. "Because I knew you'd judge me. You always told me to build a career first, to stay responsible. But things didn't go that way. I didn't want to disappoint you." I looked around the room, toys scattered on the floor, baby bottles on the coffee table. This wasn't some temporary fling. This was a family. My son had built a family, and I didn't even know about it. "But why would you say you didn't need another mouth to feed?" I asked quietly. Michael clenched his fists. "Because I can barely afford to feed this one. I didn't want you to see how bad things have gotten." Emily spoke up gently. "Michael works 2 jobs. We're behind on rent. We don't even know if we can stay here next month." My heart ached, not just because of his words, but because I had no idea my own son was struggling so much. And now here he was, trying to carry all this weight alone, while I stood outside, thinking he had turned cold. "Son," I said, my voice trembling, "I'm not here to judge you. I'm here because I was scared and needed family. But it looks like you're the one who needs me." I sat down slowly on the edge of the couch, the baby staring up at me with wide, curious eyes. My hands trembled as I reached out, and Emily gently placed the child in my arms. He was warm, tiny, and completely unaware of the storm swirling around us. "What's his name?" I asked quietly. "James," Michael said, his voice barely above a whisper. I smiled at the little boy, but inside, my heart was heavy. "Michael, why didn't you come to me? You know I would have helped." Michael's jaw tightened. "It's not that simple, Dad. I owe people money, not just credit cards, real people, dangerous people. If they knew you were around, they might come after you too." "Dangerous people?" I repeated, stunned. Emily's face went pale. "Last week, someone banged on our door at midnight, shouting about a debt.
I was terrified. Michael slammed his fist on the table. That's why I didn't want you here. I don't want you mixed up in this mess. But it was too late. I was already in it. I looked at my son, exhausted, scared, trying to protect his family all by himself, and I realized this wasn't just about money. This was about survival. Listen to me, I said firmly, setting little James back in Emily's arms. You're my son. I don't care what mistakes you've made. We're going to fix this. Together. Michael shook his head. You don't understand. They want $10,000 by next Friday, or... He couldn't even finish the sentence. I took a deep breath. My retirement savings weren't huge, but there was enough to help. Still, I knew throwing money at the problem might not solve it. Whoever these people were, they wouldn't just walk away quietly. Tell me everything, I said, my voice steady now. Names, numbers, I want to know exactly who we're dealing with. Michael hesitated, fear flashing in his eyes. Then he finally whispered a name that made my stomach turn. I knew that name. I had heard it before, years ago, when I was still working at the bank. And if I was right, this wasn't just some loan shark. This was someone far worse. The name Michael whispered hit me like a punch to the chest. Victor Kane. I hadn't heard it in over a decade, but I'd never forgotten it. Back when I worked at the bank, Victor Kane ran an underground lending ring. People came in desperate for cash, and he gave it to them at impossible interest rates. If they couldn't pay, he didn't just send letters. He sent men with baseball bats. Michael, I said carefully, do you have any idea who you're dealing with? My son swallowed hard. I know he's bad news, but I was out of options. Emily lost her job when she had James. I was behind on rent, utilities. I just needed a quick loan. And you thought Victor Kane was your solution? I said, trying to keep my voice steady. Son, he's not just a thug. He's connected. People who cross him disappear. Emily's eyes welled up with tears. We didn't know what else to do. I stood and paced the room. Memories flooded back. Customers crying at my desk, begging for help, terrified of Victor Kane. I'd seen him destroy lives. And now my own son was on his list. Dad, Michael said, his voice breaking, you should leave before this gets dangerous. I turned and looked him square in the eye. I'm not going anywhere. This is my family, and I'm not going to let Victor Kane lay a finger on you. Michael shook his head in disbelief. What are you planning to do? You can't just walk up to him and talk him out of it. Maybe not, I said slowly, but I know something about Victor Kane, something that could scare him more than money ever will. Michael frowned. What do you mean? I took a deep breath. When I worked at the bank, I handled his accounts. I saw things, illegal things. If the right people found out, Victor Kane wouldn't be threatening anyone. He'd be behind bars. That night, I couldn't sleep. Every creak of the old floorboards made me wonder if Victor Kane's men were already outside. I sat in Michael's small kitchen, sipping cold coffee, thinking about how to use what I knew. Around midnight, there was a knock at the door. Not a polite knock, a hard, rapid pounding. Emily froze with the baby in her arms. Michael's face went pale. Don't answer it, I whispered. But the pounding grew louder. Michael, a voice barked from outside. We know you're in there. Open the door, now. Michael started toward the door, but I grabbed his arm. No, let me handle this. I stepped forward, my heart hammering. I wasn't a young man anymore, but fear has a way of waking up every muscle you forgot you had. I opened the door just a crack. Two huge men in leather jackets stood on the porch, their faces hard as stone. Who the hell are you? One of them snarled. I'm Michael's father, I said calmly, even though my hands were shaking. And you don't need to wake the baby in the middle of the night to talk about money. The taller man shoved the door open wider. This isn't your business, old man. Tell your son to have 10 grand by Friday, or we come back. He leaned closer, his breath hot and sour. And next time, we won't knock. I didn't flinch. You tell Victor Kane that John Davis remembers him, and if he's smart, He'll remember me too. That stopped them. For a second, confusion flashed in their eyes. What did you just say? I repeated, John Davis, from the old Union Bank. He'll know exactly what I'm talking about. The two men exchanged a look, then, without another word, they turned and walked back to their car. The engine roared and they disappeared into the night. Michael shut the door and locked it, his voice shaking. Dad, what did you just do? I sent Victor Kane a message. Now he knows I'm not just some scared old man, and he's going to think twice about coming after my family.
The next morning, my phone rang before the sun even peeked over the horizon. I nearly dropped it when I saw the number, an unfamiliar one, but the voice on the other end was unmistakable. John Davis, the voice hissed, venom dripping from every word. So, you think you can intimidate Victor Kane? Funny. Very funny. Victor Kane, I said evenly, keeping my voice calm. It's been a long time. You should know by now, threats don't work on me. There was a pause, just long enough for me to sense the danger in every heartbeat. You have no idea what you're playing with, Kane spat. I don't forget debts, and I certainly don't forgive them. Your son owes me, and I want my money. I know what you want, but threatening a child and a young mother, that's where you cross the line. Kane laughed, a chilling, hollow sound. You always were naive, John, always trying to play hero. But heroes get broken. I suggest you keep your distance, unless you want to see your precious son and his little family suffer. I hung up, my hands trembling for a second before settling. My mind raced. He wasn't bluffing. He never did. And now he was in my personal sphere, testing me, daring me. I looked at Michael and Emily. We're going to need a plan, I said. We can't just sit here and hope he backs off. Kane thinks he can intimidate us, but we have leverage he doesn't expect. Michael looked at me, skepticism and fear in his eyes. Dad, what can we possibly do against him? He's connected, dangerous. People disappear. I've seen it. I know, I said, my voice firm, but I also know things about him that could ruin him, the kind of things that law enforcement would kill for. We're not defenseless. We just need to be smart. Over the next hour, I went through old files, emails, and records I had tucked away from my banking days. Names, transactions, suspicious accounts, all little breadcrumbs that could unravel Kane's empire if used correctly. Emily whispered, Dad, this is risky. What if he finds out? I've spent decades balancing risk. Now it's time to use what I know. We're going to set a trap, but it has to be perfect. One mistake and Kane will come for us. All of us. Michael swallowed hard. And the money? We'll handle that too. But first, we make sure Kane understands he's not untouchable. He may have muscle, but he doesn't have the law on his side, and he certainly doesn't have us afraid. As I spoke, little James cooed in Emily's arms, oblivious to the storm brewing around him. And that's when I made a silent vow. No one, not even Victor Kane, would ever threaten my family again. 7. By late afternoon, a black SUV slowly rolled down the quiet street outside Michael's apartment. I saw it from the kitchen window. Tinted windows, engine humming low, an unmistakable aura of menace. Kane had decided to come himself. Michael stiffened. Dad, he's here. What do we do? I took a deep breath. We don't run. We stay calm. We control this. The doorbell rang. I walked to it, cane in hand, heart hammering but my face calm. Michael and Emily stood behind me, tense but trusting. I opened the door, and there he was. Victor Kane, taller than I remembered, suit immaculate, eyes like ice. A faint smirk crossed his face as he took in the sight of me standing there. John Davis, he said slowly, savoring every word. So you think you can intimidate Victor Kane? Bold. Victor, I replied evenly. You came into my world. He laughed sharp and dangerous. You think you can scare me after all these years? I don't scare easily, but I do know things about you that could put you behind bars, and I know you remember me. That matters. Kane's smirk faltered just slightly. Oh? Do tell. I handled your accounts at the bank. I saw your transfers, your offshore dealings. Your little empire isn't as invisible as you think. One wrong move, and it all comes crashing down. He studied me, eyes narrowing. And you'd use that.
The next morning, a series of subtle signs told us Kane was already moving. A black sedan parked suspiciously across the street. A man loitered near the corner store, watching the apartment. Someone had clearly been sent to intimidate, to test us. Michael frowned, pacing. He's probing, trying to see if we're scared. I nodded. Exactly, but we won't play his game. Every move he makes, we'll anticipate, and every threat he sends, we'll document. Kane underestimates patience and preparation. By midday, an envelope slid under the apartment door. Inside was a single sheet of paper. You think you can hide? 10,000 by Friday, or your son pays the price. No signature, no name. But we all knew who it was from. Emily clutched James to her chest. They're serious. What do we do? We respond carefully, I said. Michael, make sure Kane knows we're not alone. Leave a subtle message. Nothing confrontational, just enough to show we're aware and watching. Michael nodded, dialing a carefully chosen number. Within minutes, a discreet text message was sent, hinting that the authorities had been alerted to Kane's offshore transactions. We didn't threaten. We didn't provoke. We simply reminded him that we knew more than he expected. Hours later, Kane's response came. Another envelope, this time with a photo of Michael and little James leaving a grocery store. My stomach twisted. Kane had crossed a line. Personal intimidation. This is escalation, I said, gripping my cane tighter. He wants fear to dictate our actions. But we won't let him. Not now, not ever. Emily whispered, should we go to the police? I've handled things legally before, but Kane is dangerous. Rushing to the police without solid evidence could make things worse. We need proof, and then leverage. Then we move, decisively. The apartment grew tense as night fell. Every shadow seemed longer, every sound amplified. But instead of fear, determination surged. We were no longer just victims. We were strategists, united in purpose. Kane had initiated the confrontation, and now the first real steps of the counterattack were underway. As I watched my family huddled together, a quiet vow formed in my mind. Kane wouldn't break us, and when the moment came, we would end this, not with panic, but with precision. The next morning, we put our plan into motion. Michael and I sat together, reviewing the documents I'd pulled from my old banking records. Offshore accounts, hidden transactions, and suspicious transfers lined the spreadsheets, every one a potential lever against Kane. Dad, how do we make sure this works? If he catches on... He won't, I said firmly. We present this carefully, anonymously to law enforcement and media channels that investigate financial crimes. Kane's entire network relies on secrecy. Once it cracks, he can't hide. Emily helped draft the emails and package the documents digitally. Every piece of evidence was double-checked, every name verified. Michael and I rehearsed the steps, who would send the files, how we'd track delivery, and how we'd watch for Kane's reaction. By late afternoon, the first digital envelope was sent. The documents went to a well-known investigative journalist specializing in organized crime, and a tip-off was submitted anonymously to law enforcement. We didn't just send evidence, we sent a warning. Cain's empire was exposed, at least partially, and he would know it. Within hours, the subtle signs of panic began. That black sedan returned, this time circling nervously. A man appeared near the building, clearly scanning for our movements. Cain was reacting, just as I had predicted. Then came the call, a distorted voice, unmistakably Cain's, this time not through threats, but calculation. "You John Davis, I see what you've done. Clever, very clever. But don't think this buys you safety. You've started something you can't control." "I control my family's safety. And Cain, your secrets are no longer hidden. You can't intimidate us anymore." There was silence on the line, then a sharp laugh. "Interesting. But this isn't over. I know you, John. I've underestimated you before. I won't make that mistake twice. Prepare yourself." Click. The line went dead. Michael looked at me, eyes wide. "He's hangry. He's going to come after us directly now." I nodded, feeling the familiar surge of resolve. "Let him come. We've set the pieces. Cain will learn the hard way that threatening my family comes with consequences he never imagined." Emily held James close, whispering, "We're really doing this, aren't we?" "Yes," I said quietly, looking at my son. "We're fighting, and we're going to win. Together."
As night fell, a shadow of imminent danger descended. Two faceless figures appeared in the lobby below our apartment. Cain's men had come to make their move. Michael whispered, "Dad, they're really here. What do we do?" "Stay calm," I said. "Every step we take is planned. They want to scare us, but we won't be afraid." Suddenly, the doorbell rang. Cain's two men were standing right outside our door. "Michael Davis," the leader warned, "your father's little stunt hasn't gone unnoticed. Now you pay, or—" I stepped forward slowly, steady and unshaken. "The threats you make are small, but if you touch my family, you won't survive the consequences you can't even imagine." A few tense seconds passed. Then Cain's men backed away, realizing they had underestimated me. They left, muttering threats as they disappeared into the night. Michael stared at me in disbelief. "Dad, you weren't scared again?" "No fear left," I said. "Now, we strike. Carefully, strategically. Cain won't harm our family again." Emily hugged little James tightly, whispering, "Thank you, Dad." I looked at my son and the family before me. We're all in this together. No matter how big Cain's threat, we'll face it as one. The next day, we finally made the decisive move using Cain's vulnerabilities. Michael, Emily, and I submitted the evidence to investigative journalists and law enforcement. Within hours, much of Cain's criminal network and illegal dealings were exposed. A few hours later, Cain called. "John Davis, you've made a fool of me," he hissed. "I won't stay silent." "This time it's you who won't stay in control," I said calmly. "You threatened us, but now your crimes are exposed. Our family is safe." A tense laugh came through the line, but Cain knew the fight was over. His reign of fear had ended. Over the next few weeks, Michael and Emily regained stability, and little James began to grow up in safety and peace. We started a new life together, free from threats and fear. One evening, I looked at my son. "Michael, you've grown strong. Together, we can overcome anything." Michael smiled. "Dad, you are our shield, and now we've learned to fight for ourselves too." Emily held James close, whispering, "Thank you, Dad." I looked at my son and the family before me. We're all in this together, and this family will never be afraid of threats again.